So today we are talking about Cuban cichlids. What have they been used in, and how can we use them in a project? Which I feel like they're pretty common. Everybody likes Cubans, but somebody commented on a video, said, "Can you do Cubans?" So if you guys want something, comment it, and I'll try to get to it when I can. So Cuban cichlid, sexually dimorphic, meaning male and female, look different based off their gender, which we can see here. There's female, there's male. Some of them have nice coverage over the face. This honestly is probably the same fish. Let me look. We've got an F, an F. Yeah, these are the exact same fish. So, but it's got nice coverage. Not every single Cuban will have that full facial coverage. But let's just go ahead and dive in what they've been used in. So convict, right off the bat, I don't have the example, but they've also been used in an aquarium strain HRP, which I say aquarium strain because it probably had other stuff in it. Came out similar to these. So convicts obviously got some pearling, removes a lot of the color that you're wanting, makes basically an overrated convict cichlid. Well, if you're not meowing, I don't know who is. Cuban dovii jaguars, 50% Cuban. Honestly, I gotta get another updated photo of this because I have one saved. But this is nice. I mean, it's along the lines of a predatory fish, and I mean, it's got white pearls, so it's cute. Cuban flower horn, Cuban flower horn, Cuban flower horn, Cuban flower horn, 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 more flower horn, gold-based flower horn, jaguar. So let's go talk about the flower horn stuff. If you're breeding Cuban flower horn, I would suggest to a Comfa, more likely to get something like this. Obviously, there are some that need to be culled off. This would be a cull for me. This would be a keeper. This would be a cull. This would be a cull. This would be a cull at that size. This would probably be a big grow out. This would get culled off specifically for its face. This would probably be kept and then eventually culled. This would be kept and sold and bred. This would be kept and bred. This would be kept for a while unless this beak got bad. This and this are the same fish. But you can see how the beak developed worse as it aged. This would be bred. This is cute. I mean, it's definitely just very silkish, but the body shape is nice. The nutshell hump's nice. The face isn't bad. The fins are pretty decent. It could be used back into flower horn. This would be kept. This would be kept. Cuban jaguar. I mean, we just saw the dovii jag Cuban mix. Cute little baby stage, adult stage, hit or miss. This would be, if I got this in F1, I'd be like, oh yeah, we're cooking here. But if I got the bottom one in F1, I would be so upset. I'd be so upset if I got this one because this is butt ugly to me. Face is got something going on with it. The color's not great. I prefer this one over that. Cuban Comfas, which is just another flower horn mix. But it's an F1 Comfa, so F1 Comfas are Veja flower horn, bred back to Cuban. Here's what we got. Basically 50% Cuban, 25% flower horn, 20% Veja. I like this one. Both of these would be keepers. If you're doing a flower horn project, you're like, I don't know where I want to start. Comfa is a great start. If it was me, I'll get into how I would do a Comfa one in a little bit. Comfa Hartwigii, not a huge fan of. Cuban Nasty, Comfa Cuban Hartwigii, Cuban Nasty. These have fertile males and females, and honestly, I like the unique pattern on them. I feel like if it was adjusted a little bit, could be really nice just as a simple two blood. Oh, here's the aquarium strain HRP. Again, like I said, basically the same thing at the top. Cuban SRD, Super Red Dragon. It's alright. I probably would have culled it. I'm not a big fan of gray. The pearls are alright. The shape isn't where I would want it at. The fins aren't where I'd want it at. Cuban Texas, specifically Carpentis. Not terrible. Definitely proreceptive. Definitely, and it's like a 50-50 on the body shape. But I don't mind it. So, That's basically what Cuban can do. Let's see if I copy this image. Can I paste it in here? There's 2 routes I would take Cuban. There's 3 routes I'll take Cuban. We'll do flower horn route. We'll do a Cuban route where it's like try to pull the black skin as much as possible, and then there's another just Cuban route. Because Cubans have shown to have issues with some fertility in males, as well as causing females not to lay properly. And again, that's just because of where they're related on the grand scheme of where they are at genetically. They've been isolated for a lot longer, and the nasties are close to them, and that's why they produce fertile. But the other stuff that needs a lot more work, like does Cuban, Sequoia, or Convict produce fertile males? No idea. Nobody's tested it. But we've seen that Cuban flower horns and Cuban other stuff has had fertility issues. So that is something to kind of keep an eye on if you are working with them. So we're going to go with Cuban flower horn first. And obviously, my suggestion could be Cuban Compha. And what I would want to make sure you have for this is a Cuban male. Okay, 1 second. F1 Compha female. And an F3 Compha male. This would be the bare minimum of what I would want if I was starting to do a flower horn project with Compha. So first things first, obviously I'm going to want to do Cuban to Compha, or to F1 Compha, right? Now you want to make sure this one's fertile. This is going to be a big thing. This needs to be a fertile F3 male. Because again, F3 is going to be F1 is 50% flower horn, F2 is 75, F3 is 87.5, so it'll be 87.5% flower horn and 12.5% Beha. Just to keep that in mind. Sorry, I'm being attacked by a kitten. Pretty cute though. This one's got no tail like the dad. Pretty proud of that project. First generation of this project. Plan to work it. So Cuban to Compha is going to give you your F1, right? But your F1 are going to be a 50, 25, 25 mix. So just scooch forward a little bit. Okay. So we've got F1, which is a 50, 25, 25 mix. Okay. What the freaking heck is going on tonight? Now, I would take F1 into 2 directions because of issues, right? I would take it into Cuban, and I'd take it into the flower horn. So, it would look like F1, X, Cuban, and F1, X, flower horn, right? And we're going to treat this like it's a Compha loop, right? So if you go back, Compha loop, go towards the, oh my god, go towards the flower horn side. This is so go towards the flower horn side, you know, F1, cross the flower horn, F2, cross the flower horn, F3, cross the flower horn, F4, basically flower horn. And if you go down the Beha side, we're going to do the Cuban side. F1 to Cuban is going to be 0.5, 0.25, and 0.125, right? Just for, like, having percentages, and so I can kind of talk about this. Again, if you don't know about the Compha loop, I should have a video out on it about Comphas, so go watch that so you can understand a little bit better. But we'll do, this will produce 0.5, and this will produce F2. Now, 0.5 are going to be 75% flower horn, 75% Cuban, 12% flower horn, so 0.5%, 12.5% Beha, right? And now the flower horn to your F1 is changing up. So it's going to be equal to 87.5 Let me go ahead and add a parentheses. Plus 25 divided by 2. Your F2 is 56.25% flower horn. And it is going to be, I'm going to guess, 18.75% Beha. But let's double check my math. It might be wrong. Actually, it is wrong. No, it's not. Maybe it is. I don't know. We'll see. Oh, it's not. Oh, yeah. 18.75% Beha. And to keep it on the same notion, we're going to put Cuban in the front. 25. Now, do I think this is going to give you fertile males? I don't necessarily think these ones will be fertile, but you might have fertility rates like a 0.5, where it's like a 40% chance of getting a fertile male. In that aspect, I would take your F0.5 and your F2, and I'd cross them together. F0.5 male, X, F2, female, and I would cross them together. And that'd be basically where I would start sitting at. And I'd basically just run this loop across your, this would be technically F1 again. It'd be 50% this, the flower horn. Let's go ahead and write down here. 50% Cuban. Let's go ahead and do Beha first, it's already here. And now we'll do the flower horn side real quick. Let me double check that math. Did I miss something inside this equation? Okay, let me just double check my math because I don't know. Plus 15.625 equals. Okay, something's going wrong with my math here. Right? 75 plus 25 equals 100. Okay, that's where I got it wrong. It's not 25. It's 12.5. It's 34. 34. This would be 1. 35 plus 5 is 40. 10 plus 10, yeah. So it's 34. 34.375% flower horn. So we got Cuban, flower horn, Beha. And I got this. I would breed it back to dad, and I'd breed it back to the F2. I'd probably take, you're just basically balancing the Cuban for the skin and some pearl effects. If I got to I was like, okay, this is perfect. This is where I want it to be. I'd probably add more flower horn and see if I can get it more stabilized on a flower horn percentage. And just go from there. My next thing is actually going to be built off the fact. It's not on here. That's my fault. Let's see if I can find it. That's actually really frustrating. Ooh, that's annoying. Okay, give me 5 seconds. We're back. This is Rainbow Cichlid to Nasty, right? Which Nasty is the cousin to Cuban. It's literally this cichlid right here. So this cross to this equaled that, right? Which the males were not fertile. We'll just start off with that. Males were not fertile. But let's go ahead and talk about something I know about rainbow. It dwarfs the size. These only got about 6 inches. Rainbow Texas only got about 6 inches. Rainbow Flower only about 6.5 inches. Rainbow has seemed to dwarf down size, which is kind of nice when a lot of Central American cichlids get just too large for people to keep. So what I would do with this project is I would do a Cuban to a rainbow cichlid to see if I can get a better pearl structure than this, because Cuban or Texas rainbow was actually really pearly. And I'd also see if I get the Cuban color. So it'd be a dwarf Cuban project. What I would want to go with that is I'd go Cuban X rainbow 50-50. Okay, what the heck is wrong with me? It's going to give you F1. It's going to give you F2, which is 75-25. Do F2 X Cuban. Which is going to give you F3, which is F3, which is 87.5 Cuban and 12.5% rainbow. Is that going to be doing a ton for the size? Possibly. We've seen some 25% Depi crosses, which Depi seems to be dwarfing down size as well, lower down the sizes, so this could be beneficial in that facet. I'd then do F3X rainbow. I would call F4A. Which I want to implement A, B, C, D into lines and stuff, but I have to explain it to you guys, which is like the hellish part. But for the sakes of this video, we'll just call this F4A, and I'll eventually go in and tell you all about crap. So we'll go F4A, which will do F3 male X F4A. This is going to give you F5B. And then we'll go F3 X F5B, which is going to give you F6C. And then you'll take your F6C, you'll want to test its fertility, and you'll cross that back to rainbow. And this will give you F7A. Now, what are we doing in this facet? We're taking it to bow for size. We're crossing it to Cuban for color. So F3 needs to have the most Cuban look possible. And then you bring it back to rainbow. You're bringing it back to the F3. You're selecting the most Cuban look possible. Then you're doing F5, and you're selecting the most Cuban look possible. Then you're taking F6C. You're selecting the most Cuban look possible, and bring it back to rainbow. And then you're basically do F7 to F6, F8 to F6, F9 will be your new F3, right? Now, what's this doing is it's increasing rainbow genetics, which should overall help the long-term fertility of your line. Like, well, I want to use a Cuban. Well, why don't you use the dwarf Cuban? It's going to help with size, and it's going to help with fertility versus a normal Cuban. And if you're successful, and you're able to get a Cuban that only gets like this big, and sexually matures at this big, that's kind of a hit. And you could obviously swap out rainbow for Depi or Cutterai or Chedamalensis. I just don't think they're going to be as solid as rainbow would, but rainbow's a little bit of a fussy breeder here and there, so I completely get it. What's the last thing I would do with Cuban? Go stare at them. I would do Calico Convict to them. Or Marble Veja, which I have a video out on genetics, and it breaks down how to do it, but for the sake of the video, I'll break it down for you. I'm just not going to break down probably percentages as much as I would, because it's super. It's just not needed. So we'll go Convict, we'll go Cuban. Go ahead and up that picture, and I'll show you why each is like, one's better than the other and one's not, which again, on my genetic video I kind of go into depth on why I would do what. So we've got the Cuban and we've got the Convict. F1s, we already know what F1s are going to look like. horrendous garbage. Like, honestly, they're going to be garbage. But this isn't a one and done cross. This would be a Calico Con. Go Calico X Cuban. This is going to produce your F1, which should be 50-50, 50% Cuban, 50% convict, 100% heterozygous for Calico. I would then do F1 X Cuban. This is going to give you 75-25, 75% Cuban, 25% convict, and only a 50% chance to be het. I would take Calico male X F2 until you find a female F2 that is het, right? Because this is F2. Until you find a female that proves, like, throws out calicos in this, then I would take Cuban X F2, which is going to give you F3, which is going to be 87.5% Cuban and 12.5% convict, and it's also going to be 50% het for Calico. I would then breed sibling to sibling off of this until you hit Calicos, because this should throw out F4. As long as you hit 2 that are het, it'd be 25% visual Calicos, and that becomes way easier. And with the high percentage of Cuban, you should basically have like this overall look with, you know, white markings like this, which I prefer the Calico look over the marble look, which I'll also show you the marble because it's a little bit easier for you guys to do. Not saying like one's better than the other. I prefer Calico. I feel like marble's just too, but it is easier for people to use. So we'll go ahead and talk about that now. So I don't know. I just feel like Calico's got so much potential. It's just not being clicked into yet, which is fine. I'll do it myself. Eventually, I'll do something Calico X. Okay, so now we got Cuban to Fenestratus. Cuban X Marble. Cuban X Marble. You're literally just going to go Cuban X F1 Marble. Cuban X F2. Cuban X F3, which is going to give you your F4. What's your F3? F4, which is going to be F1's 50, F2's 75, F3's 87.5, F4 should be like 93 point something. Let's see. Equals parentheses 87.5 plus 100 divided by 2. 93.75% Cuban should be your for this. Now, obviously, you're like, well, this one is, it takes longer, there's more work. I think it's worth it. I think it's going to have an overall better result. But this is also easy enough. I mean, you're literally just taking a marble to a Cuban, then your best female back to the Cuban, then your best grand female back to the Cuban, then your best great grand female back to Cuban, and F4, you basically have marble Cubans. But again, marble messes with the structure of purling and color, and I don't trust it. I don't. But Calico's unknown. It could do something similar. I prefer the striped looking. I think this is nicer. I think it's going to have, if this was like striped with white, I think it'd be way cooler. Whereas with the marble, you have more of a blotching to it, and you kind of have a chance of going all white, which wouldn't be fantastic. I don't know. If you guys feel like I need to go more in depth on something, comment. If you guys want to see a species specifically covered that you guys want me to do, comment, and I'll get to it when I can get to it. This was common probably about a week ago, and I'm getting to it now. So if you guys want something specific, let me know.